Everybody, we're going to pan the class. Everyone say hi to the camera. Wave to the camera, everybody. This is really going to bug people when I do this really fast. Wasn't that exciting? Don't you feel like you're part of this now? All right. Any questions on the map? I'll be glad to answer them in the form of a riddle. All right, everyone, make sure your name is on it. Rip them very carefully out of the thing. You will get extra credit if you use crayons because I think that's.
I ate all my crayons. I can actually use crayons.
You ate your crayon. Okay.
That was my favorite.
It's good to be back in preschool, isn't it? Crayon.
I use crayons to outline everything.
No crayon. I'm not even going to take it. There's no question. All right, turn them up. Make sure your name is on them. We will be doing this one. I originally said it on Thursday, but I think I'm going to send it on Friday. I kind of left that day open. Everything takes longer than I think. This is kind of a big law. Big law is in a shocking law. Nah, I just go until we're done. Get over the best. Everything always takes too long. I know. So I have to make up the time somewhere, so I just have to figure it out. The great thing is you're such an amazing class. You can, yeah, this class kind of blows me away. Like I've said, I'm at retirement. You know, I'm retired. I'm retired after this. No, there's no class that's ever going to replace you. Am I going to tell? Why exchanges my year? Oh, yeah. All I know is that I am significantly younger and in many ways wiser than Mr. Peters. Significantly. You're supposed to do the assembly. Then we circle and we aren't you? You said you could set the assembly. Yeah. 15 rounds, bare knuckle boxing.
Okay. Tell me if I'm too high or too low.
Okay.
97.
Yes. All right. Here we go. Where do we finish in here? Do we get to this mountain valley?
Yes. Railroads was the last thing you had to put.
Railroad.
Where did we get to
Yay. All right. Something else I was going to tell you. This is my favorite part. What other music? I was just saying. I don't trust you. Would you trust you? All right. So we got the new technology. Oh, who was the protector of the Serbs of Serbia? Russia. And what country had a huge population, a multi-ethnic country that was barely holding it together? Austria-Hungary. And what country saw themselves as the ally, the protector of Belgium? Britain. What alliance was Austria, Germany, and kind of Italy? How about Britain? How about France, Russia, and kind of UK? Yeah. And do we get to dreadnoughts? Should we do dreadnoughts, everybody? Let's do railroads first. So, we talked about the mass army and conscription. The other big thing were railroads. And railroads, the big thing was now you can supply the mass armies. The problem is you're now tied to the railroads. You can't really move an army past where the railroads are. And that this is going to be a problem then for all future wars. It's so expensive to supply large armies. And so they could move all these troops and supplies. Here are British soldiers. You see the heavy artillery rounds right here. These are American soldiers in August 1918. But you're tied to the railroads then. And therefore, like industry was and everything else, they're become a target. This is actually a destroyed railroad bridge in Russia. The Russians destroyed it so the Germans couldn't use it. And here are Germans making sure that this railroad in France can't be used. We'll make one of these after we'll see how it works. Just
After the moat?
yeah. Well, after we dig the moat, so in case someone gets mad. But the symbol of all of this were the dreadnoughts. The symbol of the arms race. The symbol of the militarism at this time. This super weapon that's incredibly expensive. It's beyond the technology or industrial capability of most countries. And remember the Great White Fleet that sailed around the world in 1907? Well, these were the ships that made them obsolete by the time they got back to the United States in 1909. The dreadnought right here was over 19,000 tons, almost double the size of the next biggest size battleship. That's why they would soon call them after that ship, the dreadnought. And it had 10, 11-inch guns that could fire 18,000 yards. And every ship in every navy was obsolete after that. And soon everybody wants to build one. And they're eventually going to have super dreadnoughts like the Barnum right here that's going to be nearly 40,000 tons. And have 15-inch guns that can fire over 22,000 yards. I have a couple dreadnoughts myself. They're a Canyon Ferry. I can take them out every once in a while, clear out the jet skiers. And well, yeah, you got to make a stand, and also sailboats too.
What are we doing with sailboat?
Yeah, we just clear out the water. I control it. Well, soon only the most industrialized powers could make these. So these are, well, here's our British ones. Japan is going to start building them. France has the industry, but they're putting every penny in their ground forces. Russia is industrializing as fast as they can, but they're not quite there. Here's an American dreadnought. That's the New York. And that's in a museum right now, 12-inch guns. And it would be used in World War II also. And probably the most important weapon these ships have, I think you can see it. Can you see it? They can fire a cat over the horizon.
Oh, put a cat in there.
Huh?
Put a cat in there.
You never know when the enemy might appear. And you got to be able to launch that cat. Ah! Every ship had cats as pets. So.
Pets are really cool.
Imagine that.
Yeah, and they don't need they're a little bit easier on a ship than a dog would be. So, here's a joke cartoon from Puck magazine, but showing here's Japan, all the great powers, like playing poker, but with now dreadnoughts. And this would become the symbol of this. But the most important arms race or competition for dreadnoughts was between Germany and Britain. Because once Germany started building, here's one of the first dreadnoughts. These are German dreadnoughts, and you can see the new technological advancement, aerial reconnaissance on a pontoon plane. Once Germany started building it, what's Britain going to do? These dreadnoughts pushed them to the triple entente. They're already kind of leaning that way, but once Germany started producing dreadnoughts at a faster pace by 1912, Britain is now planning with the French. And this will push the British to join the war. Because, they get Belgium, or who knows, Calais, that's only about 20 miles. That's a quick dash. By the time war began, Britain had 36 and soon 2 more dreadnoughts. Germany had about half as many. But Germany only had to put them all right here. And Britain feels really insecure because Germany has the most powerful army in the world. The Navy is just an addition. Britain, their Navy is everything. And if they lose that Navy, they're done, and they know it. So that is a existential threat. Ironically, these weapons are going to be so expensive, so valuable, and so important for national prestige. You know, look at our dreadnoughts. That everybody thought there'd be one big battle. Remember Alfred Thayer Mahan said, one big battle. They were afraid to do it. They were afraid to fight. They were afraid to send the dreadnoughts out. Germany should have sent their dreadnoughts out right away and rolled the die and tried to knock out the British fleet. So they were scared. The Kaiser didn't want to lose his French ships. So there's only going to be one fight with dreadnoughts, one big battle, the entire war. These incredibly expensive weapons. They wasted all of this treasure. They helped lead to the war, one big battle. A few other smaller ones. One big battle is called Jutland. A really unbelievably complex, incredible battle that was essentially a draw. We have weapons like that today, that they're so valuable, so expensive, and so much of our prestige is based upon it that we're afraid to use now. Because what if they don't work, or what if they're shot down? The best example is the B-2 stealth bomber. They're so expensive that we would never use one where they might get shot down. And they don't work very well, so we don't want people to know how well they don't work, or how poorly they work. How well they don't work, just go with the other. The F-35 is good, is probably going to be like that too. It's been a kind of a boondoggle. All right, so with these weapons, let's get back to mobilization. So what really, the dreadnoughts are the symbol, but it's going to be forces on the ground. And here's a very important term that fits in with militarism. Bears fighting people. Now, remember I showed you that poll of who thought they could beat up a bear and all those other animals? Well, I found this, so I had to show you. I had to show you a bear boxing. But I think this is totally unfair. That bear shouldn't have a muzzle or gloves. I take the bear on right now, right? We could do that in this assembly.
It's like a little.
Have a bear?
Oh, you want to wrestle the mascot?
Huh?
You can wrestle the mascot.
Mascot starting to So, mobilization. Mobilization. And this is probably a good idea. Did they mobilize for war? And it makes sense. Here are the numbers of the manpower approximately on August 4th, 1914. So, for example, Germany, on this day, which is considered to be the day that World War I started, 4.5 million, or the day became a world war. 4.5 million. France, 4 million. But that is not just their standing army. Remember the army of the conscripts and the professionals. It's also the reserves. Mobilization is calling out the reserves. Germany's army was less than 800,000 men. Still a massive army. I mean, Germany's army at that time was a lot bigger than the United States Army is today. But it went from 800,000 to 4.5 million in less than a week. That's mobilization is calling out the reserves. And so armies would prepare for this, train, drill. The smartest young men in Germany before World War I would be recruited to join the German army, but not to be commanders on the front per se. They would be used as staff officers to go through train tables and organize the huge German rail network to get troops from little villages and towns to the frontier as fast as possible. So they could organize every train, the thousands of trains that would have to be diverted from civilian transport to the military overnight. And they would spend hours and hours and hours. So Germany is working on this. Mobilization. Boom! They send the whole country down, sends troops to the frontier. So what does all of Germany's potential armies have to prepare for? They have to prepare to do the same thing. They're all going to prepare mobilization. They're all going to have to work and drill because Germany's going to do this. And so mobilization comes. If the political leaders of the country tell the generals, mobilize, we're going to war. There's a potential enemy, and let's just take the enemies. Germany and France. Who has the advantage? Which one? If they hit the button and say mobilize. Yeah, Germany, because they will be the one to mobilize first. And that's the important thing. If you mobilize faster than your enemies, and Germany has been working on it longer, and Germany was a little bit more industrialized than France, let's say, they can mobilize and attack before their enemy is ready. And so the first to mobilize can attack right away. Whoever mobilizes first, boom, trigger goes, they attack, and therefore take advantage. So you can imagine what France is thinking. All through those first years of that century, we got to mobilize faster and faster and faster and faster. And Russia's thinking the same thing. Everybody's thinking it. And Austria, who is behind, now realizes if Russia's working on it, we got to work on it, etc. Everybody is working to mobilize faster. And so, if you mobilize fast and then don't go to war, your enemy can take the initiative. And so mobilization meant something that the political leaders of all the countries did not understand, and we'll see this time after time in history. They really don't understand the military implications of orders they make. Mobilization means war. The army will demand, if we mobilize, we have to attack, our enemy will attack first. And so what that means is all of Europe is on a hair trigger, and they all have these alliances to meet. And what if your ally might be attacked? Well, you got to mobilize. Well, you mobilize, that means you attack. A hair trigger. Gee, I wonder what it would be like to live in a country that's on a hair trigger. War all the time. I can think of no country at all like that, with hundreds of ICBMs, which are intercontinental ballistic missiles, ready to be launched within 3 minutes. I wouldn't even know where those missiles exist in Montana. We are on a hair trigger all the time right now. And those 100 Minuteman III ICBMs can be off literally within 3 minutes of getting the order. Every single one. Those are the ones near Great Falls. Yeah. Oh no, because they would have, by the morning, they would have about 15 to 20 minutes of submarine launches. But still, there's the problem with being on the hair trigger is this. If you get the steps to the hair trigger, you do those steps, eventually you get to the point where the last step is the trigger, firing. Do you allow yourself to do it? We came close so many times to not having to worry about the AP incident. Yeah. You wouldn't have to worry about it. Anybody know the closest? Actually, it was closer, one time closer. Without certain the Cuban Missile Crisis. But there's one time even closer. We were about a minute and a half from launching. 1979. I will tell you that story when we get there. That was one, let's put it this way. The person in this room that was alive during that time is really happy they did not know. We were that close. That would have been disturbing. I found out much later. I'll have to tell you the story. I'll tell you the story. So, one more thing. Let's get back to mobilization. Oh, it's an amazing story. It'll blow you away. And one of the last things to do, we watch a movie that kind of relates to it, even though they didn't know it related to it at the time we made the movie. But all of a sudden, Germany's going to take another 3.7 million or so people and take them out of their jobs. So they're factory workers, clerks, teachers, farmers, whatever they might be. And now all of a sudden, they're in the army. Every other country is going to do it too. What's going to happen to the economy? And not only that, the entire rail network, which moved all the goods and supplies for a country overnight, is going to go to moving food. Not only that, do you think the army is going to sit there and say the factories that do exist, Yeah, continue to make consumer goods to sell to people at home. You know, luxury automobiles and suits and dresses and salad out of farms. No, they want food they can preserve. They want weapons for war. They don't want passenger cars. They need carriages for artillery. If mobilization happens, and this is something every single time they don't understand. Well, the few times they did was before World War II because it was so close, they take over the economy. They literally take it all over. Which, by the way, if they take over this whole country geared up for war, what a great way for a dictator to take full control. Go to war. Gee, I wonder if there's a Russian dictator that was a little bit. Moving on. Things happen time after time after time in history. So let's look at the map. Look at the numbers. Now, the Russian army, they weren't very well equipped, but it's still nearly 6 million men potentially in uniform. France, over 4 million. Germany's army is huge, but there's 4.5 million. Austria might have 3 million men technically, but remember those ethnic groups that maybe want independence. Austria feels very insecure, and Serbia is down here. So let's say there is war, and the two main enemies of Germany, France and Russia, attack. What's going to happen to Germany? Yeah. So let's say they split their forces and try to stop them both. Yeah, a long war, they will eventually lose. What is it called where you lose so many of your men? You can fight attrition. And they know this. So German generals are looking at this, and it's called their Great General Staff. And they're looking at this, and what do? How do we alleviate this problem of a war? So war happens, boom, we mobilize and attack. What do? Why France? France is not the weakest. France has the strongest army, but more important than that, France has an army very comparable to Germany. But France will mobilize first. They will mobilize faster than the Russians because they're more technologically advanced. And so you attack them first because they are the ones that are the biggest threat. And then turn around and beat Russia because they figure it'll take Russia about 6 weeks to mobilize. France, a week. Knock them out. Remember the whole timetable of mobilization. They know France is incredibly strong, but we got to knock them out first. And so they're going to commit their entire army to knock them out. But remember those lost provinces I told you about? France is going to try to take those right here. If Germany attacks here, they'll get bogged down against the best French soldiers, and it'll be potentially a stalemate, and then here come the Russians. So what does Germany do? Okay, go around where the main French forces are, either here or here. Why don't they go through Switzerland? They don't care about neutrality. Remember, Belgium's neutral too. Mountains. It's all mountains. Switzerland remained neutral in World War I and World War II because of mountains. Because of the mountains. So, Belgium, relatively flat. Attack through Belgium. But if they attack through Belgium, who might that bring into the war? Do you see their problem? Yeah. They're going to go through us. Yeah. To get 4 million men, they need to go through the whole thing. And so the plan for the Germans, that's the term G, be named after the chief of the German Great General Staff, Erich von Schlieffen, the famous Schlieffen Plan. And the plan is this, to take 4 million men, so their best forces, in a massive right hook, and swing through Belgium, sweep through Paris, just kind of surround it. They figured they probably would have to take, but just surround it, and then knock out the French army right here. Then jump on trains and go beat the Russians. And they have to win this in 6 weeks. Yeah.
Essentially, they're going to outflank France, right?
Yeah, outflank the main French army. Yeah. And so they know Britain might enter the war, but they're rolling the die, figuring Britain has a small land force. The war will be over before Britain can really do anything. That's the plan. It's really risky, and it does have one big advantage. The French plan had the very clever name of Plan 17, which is so much better than Plan 8. Plan 9 is not bad, but the attack right here. And so Schlieffelin said, let him go. We'll just sweep around him. Even if we lose a little bit of land, in the long run, we'll win. Schlieffelin retired in 1909, but for the next few years of his life, he still worked on this plan. And he realized something. Heck, he realized about 1907. The plan won't work. No one. There's not enough roads. Imagine the traffic jam of 4 million men. Not only that, the supplies. The supply of wagons, because still almost all of it would be horse-drawn. You think the French are going to allow them to use their railroads? They can't supply it. And how exhausted are the men going to be? Fighting through traffic jams, fighting through the Belgian army, which is small but fierce. They're going to fight a massive battle here, then jump on trains and then defeat the 6 million man Russian army. It can't work. It won't work. We need a new plan. They didn't have one in 1914, so their plan was if war began, they mobilized and do the Schlieffen plan. Did everyone catch that? If they mobilize, Schlieffen plan. That's their plan for war. The French plan, Plan 17. It's war, we go. Russia had 2 different plans, one to attack Austria, one to attack, 3 different plans. And they just would initiate it. One to attack Austria, one to attack Germany, one to attack both. Austria had 3 different plans too. One to attack Serbia, one to try to do both, one to attack Russia. The point is they had all these plans. And so that's how the war, that's going into war. And you see the problem of having a plan on a hair trigger. All of these things can happen so fast, and how quickly the politicians will lose control. And the generals, they never had control anyways. So it's going to start in the Balkans, the Balkan crisis. The Balkans will be called the Balkan powder cake going back to the 1870s. This is from the Berlin Conference back in 1881, that boiling point of the Balkan problems. The former Chancellor of Germany, Otto von Bismarck, he was named after the capital of North Dakota. Bismarck, right here, said it's going to be some damn fool thing in the Balkans to start World War, or start the next war. No, he was not named after the capital of North Dakota. It's the other way around. I wonder if oh, really? And so Serbia is in the middle of it. Remember Serbian nationalism, they're intriguing in Austria. Austria just formally annexed Bosnia in 1908, infuriating the Russians and the Serbians. So the Serbians are trying to figure out a way to get the Slavs inside Austria to begin to at least agitate for independence and maybe revolt. So that's going to lead directly to an assassination. And don't forget, there have been assassinations all over Europe, but they were anarchist assassinations. This one will be different. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the Austrian throne. His great uncle was the emperor, and there's Franz Joseph and his wife, his commoner wife, and she was not of noble blood. And so that was actually really controversial. He didn't, I guess, he didn't want horse-faced children. But, so, June 28th, 1914, but don't forget there are assassinations all over. Oh, I just know, the Atlantic liner California goes on the rocks, SOS sent out. That's actually a big deal because on the first wireless radio, sending a Morse code of SOS. What does SOS stand for? Stands for nothing. It just means emergency, but it's very easy to pick up. S is 3 dots, Morse code. O, 3 dashes, dip, 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 and then dash, 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 and then S, 3 dots. So it's easy to pick up. And there's no English word that is SOS. And so it doesn't mean save our ship or save it, it just means SOS. Who sings it? Huh? They're singing a song by a Swedish group. It's called ABBA. Too Swedish. So, Franz Joseph was the emperor. Conservative, tried to hold on to the empire. He had been the emperor of the Austro-Hungarian Empire since 1848, before there was an Austro-Hungarian Empire. And he didn't like his nephew, his great-nephew, Archduke Franz Ferdinand. That's him right before the assassination. But he is going to die very soon, and his nephew wanted more autonomy for the Slavs, more liberty. Well, let me get to what happened in the assassination. There was going to be a war games down in Bosnia. Now, it's right here along the Serbian border. This was meant to kind of threaten the Serbs. Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia, is pretty close to the Serbian border. And so he was going to go to the war games as the Archduke, and then a parade through town. Go through Sarajevo, go to the city hall, then go back through town. And he could have had a lot of cavalry guards, but they weren't formally dressed. They didn't have their dress uniforms. And he thought that didn't look good for the emperor, the heir to the throne, to have men in not dress uniforms. So only had guards in one car, in 2 cars, and police in the streets. Not many guards. And he did not know, even though they had an idea, that Slavic nationalists called the Black Hand had assassins waiting on that path. They have believed in breaking away from Austria. But let's be very clear about it. These assassins, all 7 of them, have been armed, equipped, and transported by the Serbian secret police. The Serbians had given the weapons and set it up. In fact, the Black Hand, which was this terrorist group inside Bosnia for Slavic nationalism, was run by the Serbian secret police. Here is Gabriela Princip. Here's another picture of him right here. He was a Bosnian. He went to Serbia. He wanted to fight in their army, but he was still too young. Their age to fight was 19 to be in the army, and he was too small. And one more thing, like the other 6 assassins, he had tuberculosis. Why did they choose assassins with tuberculosis? Yeah, they already have a death sentence. So the assumption was going to be that they would accept not getting captured. Every assassin was given a little glass vial, a little cork on it, full of cyanide, that their capture was supposed to survive in this one, so they would not be captured. Then they were given an old black powder revolver and a couple older hand grenades. Now these old hand grenades, you would pull a fuse, and literally the friction would light a fuse, so they would smoke. They're not like hand grenades today, which you pull the pin and it's on a timer and explodes in, let's say, 8 seconds. That's what hand grenades are now. So you pull the pin, you hold it for a couple seconds, and then it blows. Now you know how to throw hand grenades. Pretty cool, huh? What won't you learn? So they were spirited over to wait for the Tsar. Did I say the Tsar? The Archduke. Here's one of the symbols of Black Hand. Black Hand's a really common terrorist group, also for organized crime. There was a whole bunch of people kind of loosely tied to the mafia, which was brand new in the United States and the US, called the Black Hand. And they would extort money from stores. You just dip your hand in like tar or something, leave a hand hurt. It's kind of scary, a Black Hand, right? We were here, kind of thing. So it's a really common name. So there's a Black Hand in the United States too. But those are just gangsters. Well, here's Sarajevo. There are 7 assassins. You don't need to know their name. By the way, you notice by their names, about 40% of the population in Bosnia are Orthodox, about 10% are Catholic, about 50% are Muslim. It was a Turkish area. So here are the assassins. Gabriel Princip is right here. As the motorcade went by, past the first car, the assassin kind of panicked and didn't do anything. Here's one of those things, I'm here, gonna go hide. The second assassin pulled the fuse and lobbed the grenade. But the driver of Archduke Ferdinand's car could see the smoke. Hit the gas, and it bounced off their trunk and rolled under the second car, which was behind. wounding 2 officers in that column. Well, now everyone knows there's more assassins, and so they raced down the street past the other assassins before they could do anything. And immediate panic. The police started arresting people. A bunch of the assassins here tried to cross the river, which was about knee deep. But who's going to cross the river and run away? They must be the assassins. A few of them got halfway across and they tried to bite the vial of cyanide. But it was so degraded because the corks weren't fit very well that it just made them really sick. And so they had a bunch of them captured. Princey stayed calm. He crossed the street and went into Schiller's Deli. True story, went in and bought a sandwich. Which I think is so funny. It's like, oh, the Archduke was shot. I got to act natural. That is, I'm hungry. So he went in and bought a sandwich. And waited. The Archduke drove to the city hall, yelled at the mayor for the lack of security, and then they said, we got to get you out of town. We don't know how many other assassins are there. But the hospital where the 2 wounded officers were back this direction. And Ferdinand demanded to see him. And so instead of driving out of town the other way, they went down this street. The original plan was to go here. But they said, no, we're just going to zip down this way. Well, when they were driving back, the first car messed up somehow. It's never really clear exactly why, but they made the turn like the original route. That driver realized it. Told, no, you made a mistake. They hit the brakes. Ferdinand's car followed, hit the brakes right in front of the delicatessen where Princey was literally just walking out. He literally just kind of walked out, and 3 feet away is the Archduke. He pulled out his pistol and unloaded it. And that's how the assassination happened. Just a weird set of happenstance. Here is a cartoon version of it, so you can see it in good detail. See if you can guess which car had Franz Ferdinand. There's the bomb. And then, wow, pretty exciting, huh? So, drawing of it. This is just a minute after the assassination. He did try to grab his cyanide, but they had already were wrestling him down. And they were going to do a show trial. They captured all the assassins. And not only that, they captured them with papers from Serbia. They could tie the guns they had to Serbia. Serbia did it. They had them hands down. This was an assassination attempt, not by just by a local group. It was Serbia. Well, there were photographers there. No, yeah, still stand on camera. But they had cameras set up against the parade. Yeah. Yeah. Now they had handheld ones, but they were really expensive and they were blurry, so pretty blurry. But they're coming. It's not very far. It won't be much longer than within 10 years they'll have the little cameras. So there's going to be anti-Serbian reprisals all over. It's going to be, this is in Sarajevo, Serbian shops and wagons are being destroyed. They rounded up Slavic nationalists and executed hundreds of them. These little they had a little ratchet and they would slowly hang them. They had these little execution machines. I mean, they went nuts. Here's the trial. There's Princip right there. And the plan was, Princip was actually too young for the death penalty. They just held him in prison, they decided. And after the war was won, they were going to have a show trial. That was their plan. He actually died in prison of tuberculosis just a year before the war. But back to this. What was the Slavic nationalist reaction to these attacks? That's exactly what they wanted. The Serbs did not expect the assassination to work. They expected it to look like a bunch of lone nuts, and then Austria would crack down hard and convince Slavs to revolt. Well, they didn't want that. They executed people, destroyed Serbian-connected stores, and now the Serbs could say, look what monsters they are, revolt. They wanted this harsh reaction. It's amazing how many times terrorists will do an attack, and the country they'll do an attack because they want a harsh reaction, and the country they attack or the people they attack do it for them. This is going to happen time after time in history. Yes, it will happen to the United States. Al Qaeda wanted the United States to attack in the Middle East. They wanted the U.S. to start bombing and killing people. Oh yeah, they're psychopaths. Let me be clear about it. And what did the United States do? Exactly what they wanted. Did it work the way Al Qaeda wanted exactly? No. But the U.S. still did exactly what they wanted. And it didn't work very well for the United States or anybody in the Middle East because it led to a lot of instability. Speaking of this, Serbia became a pariah. And originally the thought was this might go to war right away. And the rest of the world would have accepted Serbia or they would have accepted Austria doing some kind of small reprisal because they were so mad at Serbia. Here's an Austrian cartoon. There's all kinds of these as basically Serbia being repulsed by all the other countries. And I think this is actually really funny. I think you probably guess what happened there. And if you can't, talk to others outside of class. But it's really funny. Well, but this is going to lead to the July crisis. And Serbia, a lot of people say, hey, even Russia was mad at Serbia. Why would you do this? Yeah. Pariah is someone that has been being hated and blamed by people all over, ostracized for people. That's a pariah. So they're blamed for everything. And nobody wants any connection to them. Even their best ally, Russia's mad at them. But Austria is not going to settle for just a punishment attack. Austria sees this as a way we can do a full-scale invasion and destroy Serbia, and therefore wipe out the Slavic nationalists' best ally. Franz Joseph can say, I'm revenging my nephew, right? I'm revenging him. So here's a propaganda. Serbia must be destroyed. And you notice that with the terrorist bomb, that was common all over, I showed in the US too. But what did Russia say? Russia might have allowed for a small attack, as awful as that might have been. But full-scale invasion, would Russia allow for this? So Austria, you can imagine what they're thinking in Vienna. We better ask Germany. Will Germany have our back if Russia does anything? So they go to Germany, and German's chancellor, Bethlen Koopman, obviously the Kaiser was involved, said, we got your back. And the issue, what we call in history now, is the blank check. Where Germany basically said to Austria, do what you want, we got your back. Now, the bad thing about this was, is that German civilian politicians and the Kaiser just assumed it would be a short war. They weren't thinking of full-scale invasion. German generals were, but not the German civilian leaders. In fact, the Kaiser went on his annual, every year he would take a cruise up the fjords of Norway. Every year he would do this. So he went off on his cruise. So they didn't believe this was going to lead to war. They just assumed it was almost over. And it was August, the hot months of Berlin. A lot of the public officials went on vacation. But inside the great German Czech staff, the German general Erich von Moltke, no, that's von Moltke, that's the Kaiser. Von Moltke is telling his Austrian counterparts, go full now. Go all out now. This is our best chance. The mighty German army will destroy Russia once and for all. We need war today. So go all out. We got your back. Because this is what he's thinking. If we don't go to war today, what's Russia going to be like in 2 or 3 years? They'll be bigger and stronger and more industrialized, and it'll be too late. Go to war now. And actually, the German foreign minister was agreeing with him. So they're secretly telling Austria, go all out, go, go, go. Kaiser didn't know he was doing this. Kaiser went on his trip to the fjords. This should remind you of exactly the reason why the Confederacy seceded and started the war. They were thinking the exact same way. Yeah. the head of the commander of the German armies. It was called the Great German General Staff. So, Austria then began to prepare for war. And for various reasons, the slow movement of the government in Vienna, it took over 3 weeks for them, to actually do anything. By then, things had calmed down. And people thought there's not going to be a war. There were actually 2 wars in the Balkans that didn't erupt a full-scale war in the previous couple years. So they thought, we're safe. And then all of a sudden, Serbia issued, or Austria issued a 10-point ultimatum. And this ultimatum to Serbia, basically telling Serbia, you have to agree to these 10 things or we invade. And they did it on a Friday afternoon. Think about Friday afternoon. They wanted Serbia to have all their workers go home for the weekend and then have to scramble back. They wanted them to panic about this, and they made them so brutal that there was no way Serbia could actually agree to them. As you can see from this headline this is the London Independent. Brutal tenure of Austro-Hungarian note makes it almost impossible. But Russia and also indirectly France begged Serbia, and they agreed to none. You notice I put in quotes? They made caveats. And there are things, basically, they had to give up all their sovereignty to Serbia. And they had a bunch of caveats and things, that you do this, this, this. And Austria said, nope, you didn't agree. You didn't agree. That means war. Now Russia's mad. And Russia's like, no, you can't go to war. If you go to war, Austria, this time we will defend Serbia. A month earlier, if Serbia would have done a small attack, or Austria would have done a small attack on Serbia, there would not have been World War I. But Austria waited because they thought they could knock them out, and Germany gave them their advice. And so Austria declared, I should put declared war. You can see right here, this is a Washington newspaper, D.C., Austria. So, once Austria declares war, that means they start to mobilize. Well, you can imagine what Austria is thinking, or Russia is thinking. Russia has to mobilize. Russia, mobilize. I don't know why I put it like I'm there. I put myself back in time and watching it in real time instead of saying like it already, instead of saying mobilized, I put mobilizes. So Russia mobilized. Actually, they did a partial mobilization, but as the Tsar's general told them, that doesn't really exist. So once Russia mobilized, what did von Moltke tell the Kaiser, who panically came back to Berlin after his trip to the fjords? We have to mobilize. So Germany mobilized, and there are German troops going through Berlin. That's the Brandenburg Gate right there, the Brandenburg Tor, in the middle of Berlin. Wait a second now, if Germany mobilizes, who do they attack? France. Overnight, they attack France, and that's the plan. So let's review before you go. Oh, this is kind of a funny cartoon. Serbia, if you touch me, then Austria, Russia, Germany, France, and so on. So I know a lot of you are saying, but I don't quite understand how we got to war. You want me to show you a quick map and show you exactly? This should sum it up pretty easily. Be very easy to follow a 13-step plot to war. Here, let me tell you how. Let me make it easy, okay, for the war. You ready? See if you follow along before you leave. Slavic nationalists assassinated Archduke Ferdinand, the heir to the Austrian throne. Everyone got that? So naturally, Germany attacks France. Does that make sense now? Does it all come together? All logical now. Does that sound rational? Well, I put them up on the board, or I put them up, so like that map and that map. They're all oh, we got pictures coming up. Wait a minute, now you're going to make money off of my picture?
Yes.
I want my cut. 80%.
15.
Whoa, you get 15, okay, I get 85. Goodbye, everybody. Right when you find work, shut off. So, Greta, we got an action shot of you on your phone. This is going to be really exciting television. You should watch this.
What are you doing? Are you putting this?
I did a ballerina spin.
Are you putting this on the television?
It's going live. Look, say hi, wave.
Hi.
You going to get in this? Anyone else going to get in?
No.
Wow. Those kind of skills are now recorded forever.
Not a lot of